and I thought I was done with videos for a while until I got an email yesterday evening from QCA, Towerside Communications, through Condo Control, to say what are official communications to them, which is important. We should know what is official, and they declare if it's official, it's only going to come from Condo Control. They have no social media, they have no other email address, they have no other channels, and that's good to know, and I think that's important. I think that's a fair game thing to specify. However, they go further because, of course they do. They go further by saying there have been emails sent from multiple emails showing the Quatermain name. So let's break that down a little bit. Obviously, the official communications come from a sender of a Quatermain name, both from REC because they use Condo Control too. Now the challengers who've been running a QCA, they're called Quad Pro Team, but that's not Quatermain in the name. I know when I've sent a few emails as a digest of the videos I make, like this one, I use it under my name, Jen-Eric. I don't use Quatermain in the name. I scrolled through my inbox and I noticed something comes from Quad Rec Office. That's when I'm talking to an office admin. There's slight variations, but there are no other emails except from one. It works out there is one and only one email source that uses the Quatermain name, and it's namely called Quatermain Residence. I must have received over 50 emails in the last year, and that's all coming from Marlowe. So let's take a closer look what the association thinks about emails with a Quatermain name. They say to ignore and disregard the emails. I agree, you should ignore everything Marlowe is telling you in her information. Bottom line, the office is just trying to communicate what is official, where to find the information coming from them and no one else. And really, this is a story about confusion, or likelihood of confusion, trying to avoid confusion. To shift gears, for one thing I find confusing is the new restaurant. They're originally caterers trying to figure out how to run a restaurant, and they seem to have partnered with a lot of local other restaurants to bring in sushi. They had Indian night to bring in Indian food from a restaurant from Oakland Park, but it's confusing some residents as to thinking they're making the food themselves in the kitchen. They can't tell when something's brought in and marked up double or whether it's being done here on premises. So that should be a little more clearly understood, the source of the food we're eating. So here's the flyer for last night. They coupled up with CoCHERe Indian Brasserie, which is a restaurant out of Oakland Park, $50 a plate, small plates, large plates, some desserts. Sounds good, views to die for. Yep, ain't that the truth. Bollywood music, and everything's good-hearted, means well. So let's take a closer look at CoCHERe Indian Brasserie. And we can see Oakland Park over here. And if we scroll further down, this is showing inspection reports since 2019. Inspection completed. There's a lot of citations, 1177, 10, 9, a lot of it. But it looks like small stuff, right, that they could correct on the spot. So they've met inspection standards into 21, 22. But now look what's happening in the last half year. Something's changing there. Warning issued, follow-up inspection required. And here are instructor notes. Hood system not preventing grease or condensation from dripping onto clean equipment. Or this one, stainless steel polish above clean plateware. Oh, gross. The last thing I want to eat is stainless steel polish. That's scary. Mold-like substance or slime observed. Cutting boards heavily grooved with mold-like substance, okay? So some are high priority, some are intermediate action. The problem is they needed follow-up for this, and it took a few months later to finally comply, okay? You'd think I was a one-off, but as recently as last October, we had the same thing again. Walls soiled with accumulated grease, food debris or dust around the dishwasher. Times and temperatures are off. I don't know, I'm sure they're a nice place and they mean well too, but if we're partnering with people from the outside, we should at least do some due diligence and be careful who we're bringing in here. After all, it's our bellies and our health at risk. But this all falls at the feet of the one-eyed queen, the president of REC, pushing everything, ramrodding everything through.
Ramrod. Ramrod.
Hopping in bed with caterers who never ran a restaurant, saying, hey, why don't you run a restaurant and turn this place into a giant catering hall for members of the general public? Now the caterers doing what they know best, is partnering with other restaurants. But where's the due diligence on that? There's so much hopping around here. Sooner or later, someone's going to catch something, if you know what I mean. Another thing confusing is the CoCHERe, and it's more confusing than it has to be because we hold back certain documents that need to be published to this community, or they're received out of sequence For instance, to this very day, the only thing you can get is the addendum to the settlement agreement online on Condo Control. They still have never published the original executable agreement back in July 5th. They might have for a brief time on the old website, and I asked and over again, and Marlon, as you know from past videos, just flat out snubbed me on it, claiming the document's private, but it's not, but you're on your own to find it. Little tip to unit owners, if your board is not posting everything that you're entitled to, vote them all out. All right, let's run through the CoCHERe timeline. July 5th agreement. I finally got a hold of the magic Section M about CoCHERes. REC shall submit 3 designs to each of the associations. A vote will be taken of all unit owners, with the plurality deciding which design shall be adopted. The work on the project shall commence when final design is selected and completed, no later than 12 months. To me, it says that the work shall commence, right? Meaning it's a 12-month period to select and complete the design, okay? Not the whole job or the work. It needs to start within 12 months is how this reads. From the effective date of this agreement, all boards shall sign and join the consent to the resolution approving the CoCHERe. And then it says the cost of the entire project shall be allocated equally among all 810 unit owners. Okay, but none of that matters because the addendum completely eradicates it and doesn't allow you to vote or weigh in on it. But let's go through the progression. That was July 5th. 6 days later, July 11th meeting. 2 things happened. Renee from Catania was brought onto the board for the very first time. And then they state that the issue of the CoCHERe design selection construction was discussed. All of a sudden, it says 6 to 12 month timeline. It is silent in the original agreement about a range. It's a 12 month to begin, and this reiterates, to begin construction that will require special assessment. Okay, the idea of a carport was briefly entertained. Whatever, this is nothing burger. Let's move on to August 1st. The first time Renee gets to jump in, saying how CoCHERe, ACA, to help us understand that, not everyone understands it, building canopies, with other board members participating in the discussion, design cost, the assessment. Indicated he was informed there was a beautification committee, spoke to prior chairperson to provide update, give committee members an opportunity. So everything's on board, pros and cons of the project, we're by the book. That's the one thing. No bamboozle here. Everyone's trying to do it. We're talking about it in the meetings, and good for us, okay? It's not like the Bistro Bamboozle where everything was in the dark without motions or anything. So no complaints there. And everything's still fine August 1st. 3 designs are currently being considered, different costs, parameters, time frames. All right, now fast forward to October 25th, and that's when things started to change. That was the biometric bamboozle gaslight meeting. Remember that all well, right? This from late October to early November was the month of the bamboozle where everyone binged out on making up their own shit and doing policy in the dark. But let's see what we got here for October 25th. All of a sudden, for the first time, approving an addendum to the settlement agreement involving Catania in terms of the obligation to begin construction of the CoCHERe with a specific time frame. At the moment, REC is not on track to meet the obligations and seeks to extend the time. A 12-month timeline means the expiration was July 5th of 2024. So do you see this? This is the beginning of the same pattern. She's turning something that's not an emergency into an emergency. The only addendum that's being asked for on October 25th is an extension of time. Harmless enough, no big deal, nothing, no hair on fire. And again, there's assurances. Renee wanted assured timing and assured the process is moving along. He's about process, he's about sequence, giving assurances to the community, get it right. Good for him. He's representing his interests, saying, hey, we're trying to do it right, is what the guy's saying. And okay, and they voted for an addendum. So that's all the setup. That's not the confusing part yet. But now we fast forward to December 17th. And here we go, like Groundhog's Day, like deja vu. They already approved for an addendum to the settlement agreement to extend time, right? Scratch out 12, change it to 24, and you're done. But they came back to the well a month later in that meeting. And again, Marlon discussed the need for an addendum. I'm like, why are you discussing the need for an addendum? You already voted for it 6 weeks earlier. But this time it's more than time frames. It's about project leadership, sequence of work, legal review, protocols, moving forward. We finally got that addendum. They voted for this. It was not clear at all in this meeting. They did not describe the details. They were in rush panic mode, right? Because in November, something changed. The addendum, guess what it does? It strikes out that whole clause of M from the original. So all of a sudden, committees don't matter. Unit owners don't matter. Giving the Catania the lead that matter. But how is that done? Who is driving it, right? Those are definitely talks behind the scenes in between meetings. Something changed and something changed big, and it was not described clear enough to us. And that's a problem. And that's what makes stuff confusing. And you wonder why people are tripping out. And then when you saw the shitty contract language, they signed December 26th, and we finally got that addendum in January. And it talks about how everything's subject to the approval of REC. And then in the next sentence it says that they agree to provide the approval. How's it subject to the approval and say you must agree to approval that you're subject of within 10 business days? Otherwise you start paying $500 a day, right? And then they had that meeting in January where they couldn't get their apples to apples on their vendor quotes. Vlad ringing the alarm bell that no one gave a shit, ever cared till after the meeting to finally listen to the guy. And where are we now? We've been quiet for more than a month. Heck, Catania could charge us 500 times 30 days. They could start charging us $15,000. Whether they are or aren't, I don't know or care. But it's showing how quickly things run out of control when you govern by emergency. And again, this all falls at the feet of the one-eyed queen. And you know what? Today's Thursday. And you know what's tonight? Election night. And you know what you're voting for? A 2-year term. So if you're all good with it and you like to be governed, or rather ruled by emergency from one manufactured crisis to another, but to the overwhelming majority who think that is a batshit crazy idea, is not willing to go through any more further suffering and unnecessary costs over bad decision making by a rogue president run amok who abuses power, then the choice couldn't be more crystal clear. Enough is enough, and that all changes this Thursday when you vote Marlem out and you vote for the change we need to get back on a path towards better governance. If you are in Valencia and you wish to vote for Jim Ross for Valencia and Henry for at-large, this is how you would mark your ballot. By placing an X next to Jim Ross's name for Valencia and placing an X next to Henry's name for the at-large vote. If you are in Grenoble and you wish to vote for Alan Corey for Grenoble and Henry for at-large, this is how you would mark your ballot. By placing an X next to Alan Corey's name for Grenoble and placing an X next to Henry's name for the at-large vote. As long as we stand together, strong and vigilant as unit owners, we will in the long run get the good governance we deserve. Board members now and in the future will understand loud and clear that they simply just cannot get away with it. And on that note, I am wishing you a great day ahead.